Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something really fundamental, our daily routines.
Hmm,
You've shared this great collection of resources, and a lot of them seem aimed at people learning English.
that's right. But the topic itself, daily routines, it applies to everyone, doesn't it?
Totally. And our goal here isn't just listing vocabulary words, though. That's useful too.
Right.
We want to sort of unpack how we actually talk about our days, the structure, the language, from morning till night.
And maybe see what patterns pop up, how things vary between people. It's quite revealing, actually.
Okay, so looking at the sources, there are these lists, right? Vocabulary for morning, daytime, evening.
Yeah, and even broken down more like self-care routines, work stuff, cooking, exercise, all those bits.
It really shows how many different things make up a typical day.
It does. So, for you listening, this dive should give you a clearer picture of that language we use every day. More words, sure, but also how to string them together.
And maybe even spark some thoughts about, how routines differ, perhaps culturally too, which comes up a bit.
Definitely. We'll try to keep it practical, focus on the interesting bits rather than just like endless lists.
Okay, so where do we start? The core vocabulary seems like the obvious place.
Makes sense. Those basic verbs that are just everywhere in the resources.
Yeah, like, wake up, get up,
Brush teeth, have
go
breakfast,
to work, or go to school, have lunch.
finish work, have dinner, go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
and finally, fall asleep.
Pretty much covers the main markers of the day, right? The absolute basics.
They're the anchors. And straight away, there's that interesting little point from one of the conversation transcripts you shared.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
The difference between wake up and get up.
Ah, right. It seems obvious, but maybe it's not.
Well, you can wake up, your eyes open, you're aware,
Mm.
but you might still be lying there.
Okay.
Getting up is specifically that moment you, physically leave the bed.
Huh. It's a tiny distinction, but it makes sense. It's about starting the action of the day and not just consciousness.
Exactly. It kind of separates the state of rest from active participation in the day. Maybe says something about how we view our beds, too, that personal space.
That's a neat observation. And
Yeah.
then the vocabulary gets more specific depending on the time, yeah.
Totally. The lists show things like comb hair in the morning examples,
Or attend class during the day.
and maybe prepare dinner in the evening section. It paints that flow across the hours.
And then those categories you mentioned, work, cooking, exercise.
Right. They bring in more action verbs.
Yeah.
For work, it's things like reply to emails, write reports, or attend meetings, very specific tasks.
And in the kitchen, maybe chop vegetables, boil water.
Stir the soup, yeah.
Yeah.
Actions we can picture.
Then for exercise, warm up, lift weights, go jogging. These verbs describe distinct physical activities.
They do. And it's not just about work and chores, which is good.
No, the self-care and health words stood out too. Things like moisturize, apply sunscreen.
Uh-huh. Or drink water, meditate. It shows routines often include taking care of ourselves, not just ticking boxes.
It makes the whole idea of a routine feel more holistic, covering everything from obligations to well-being.
That's a good way to put it. It's this whole package of verbs that lets us map out our entire day.
So, okay, we've got the words, the actions, but how do we string them together when we're actually talking? Just listing them sounds a bit robotic.
Right. You need structure. And time is obviously key. One source reminded us about telling time using past, and two,
Oh yeah, like 9:05 or 20 to 7, basic time telling.
fundamental for anchoring activities.
Mm.
But beyond just the clock time, it's the connecting words, the time expressions that make it flow.
You mean like after that, then next?
Exactly. And phrases like in the morning, in the afternoon, at 6 o'clock, from 9 to 5. They build a sequence.
Got it. So instead of wake up, eat breakfast, go to work, which is very blunt.
A bit staccato, yeah.
You'd say something like, I wake up at 7, then I eat breakfast. After that, I go to work. Much smoother.
It creates a narrative, doesn't it? Shows
Yeah.
the order, the connection between the steps. You understand the progression.
Definitely helps. So that's sequencing. What about adding more detail, like how often you do something?
Yes. Adverbs of frequency, that came up too. Words like never, rarely, sometimes.
Usually, often, always.
Right. They tell us the how often part. It adds another layer.
So it's not just I exercise, but I usually exercise in the evening, gives you more information.
Precisely. And the grammar holding all this together for routines and habits is generally the present simple tense.
Yeah, that was highlighted quite a bit. It's the go-to tense for this kind of description.
And Like that kid's grammar video pointed out, remembering the ussery es ending for the third-person singular.
Oh, yeah. He wakes up, she goes. It starts. Crucial little detail when describing someone else's day.
Or even your own, if you frame it that way. It's fundamental English grammar for routines.
Okay, so we've got the words, the connectors, the grammar. Now let's look at how this plays out in reality. The differences between routines.
Yes. That conversation example was gold. The English teacher YouTuber and the farmer.
Living in the same house, but completely different days.
It's amazing, isn't it? Their jobs just shape everything. The farmer's day is tied to daylight, especially in summer. Super early start.
While the YouTuber has more flexibility, maybe starts later.
Exactly. And even breakfast shows the difference. The farmer needs that solid porridge for energy.
Whereas the YouTuber might just have cereal or toast, maybe that occasional full English, but it's different fuel needs.
Totally reflects their work. And the daytime activities, chalk and cheese.
Yeah, one's inside, filming, researching, more sedentary maybe.
Relatively, yeah. While the other is out doing physical farm work, like shoveling grain was the example.
Yeah.
Very different demands.
It's such a clear illustration of how our work dictates our daily rhythm.
Absolutely. And the mention of the farmer getting up even earlier in summer, that shows routines aren't rigid.
Right. Seasons, external factors, they matter.
And they briefly touched on cultural differences too, remember, with meal times.
Oh, yeah. The UK having a lighter lunch, heavier dinner, versus Spain's big lunch, later dinner pattern.
It's just a hint, but it shows how broader cultural norms can also influence these daily patterns. Fascinating stuff.
So, knowing all this, the words, the structure, the variations, how can you actually practice talking about routines, get comfortable with it?
Well, the sources had some good practical suggestions. The obvious one is just describing your own routine, out loud or writing it down.
Makes sense. Role-playing too, maybe? Describing someone else's day?
Yeah, or using clock activities, linking specific actions to specific times. That time guess game sounded fun.
What was that in?
From the ESL Kid Stuff resource, sounds like you have to guess the activity based on the time, or vice versa. Makes it interactive.
Nice. And the idea of structuring a written description, morning, daytime, evening paragraphs, that gives a clear framework.
Definitely. Helps organize your thoughts
Yeah.
and the language logically.
Okay, great. So let's try and pull this together then. We've looked at the keywords, the building blocks for talking about our days.
The verbs, the actions.
We saw how important time expressions and connectors are for creating flow and sequence.
And touched on the present simple tense, the grammar behind it all.
And then we saw how different routines can be based on jobs, lifestyles.
Even potentially culture and seasons. It's quite a rich topic when you dig in.
Hopefully you listening have a better handle now on how to talk about your own daily life and maybe appreciate the language we use for these everyday things a bit more.
Yeah, it's language we often take for granted, which leads to maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Go on.
Just imagine describing your typical day, like really describing it, to someone completely different, maybe from another culture or someone with a wildly different job or lifestyle.
Okay.
What parts of your routine do you think would seem strangest or most interesting to them? And what might that tell you about the things you take for granted, the priorities and rhythms that shape your own life, maybe without you even noticing them most of the time?